Today I'm going to show you how to put together this beautiful chakra bracelet, which I can't stop wearing. It's made out of semi-precious beads. They're all wire wrapped. It's quite easy to put together, but it's very beautiful, and each one of the beads that I've chosen corresponds to the 7 focal points in the chakras. So I'm just going to talk you through my beads. The kit for this bracelet is available from the link below. Chakra is the focal points used in meditation, of which there are 7, and they are at different points of the spine, and each one has a different energy. It's also identified by 7 different colours, and I'm just going to show you how I matched my semi-precious beads to these colours. So the first one, which is purple, is an amethyst. My indigo is a lapis bead. My blue is a turquoise. The green is a venturine. My yellow bead is a yellow quartz. The orange is carnelian, and the last one, which is red, is a red jasper. The other materials that you will need for this bracelet are 10 centimeters of fine chain, 1 ring, which is approximately 1 centimeter diameter, and it's a solid cast. You will need 4 5mm jump rings, 5 2mm jump rings, a clasp, and some wire. The wire I've used for my beads has a 0.6mm gauge. You need to choose the wire according to the beads that you are using, and for our kit the 0.6mm gauge is the best width, but it also comes with a kit. The tools that I'm using are my flat nose pliers, my round nose pliers, and some cutters, and this time I will be using what we call flush cutters, and it's quite important to use this kind of cutter for any wire wrapped work that you're doing, because you can cut the wire very accurately. If you use normal cutters for cutting wire, it's very difficult to get into the little corners and make it accurate. So it's good to invest in a pair of flush cutters, and I think once you've got one, you won't want to go back to the other cutters anyway, because it's very, very easy to use. And one last thing that you will need is a ruler or a tape measure, because you need to measure out the lengths of the wire in order to cut them accurately. First, I'm going to cut the wire that I need to wrap around the beads, and you need 7 pieces of 12 centimeters. You can do 12 or 15. If you're not very confident with your wrapping, you might want to give yourself a bit more wire. I'm going to be using 12. So you literally just cut them all the same, and you will need 7 of these. Next, I've put a little mark on my round nose pliers about 1/2 centimeter down, and I've done it just with a pencil because I want to make sure that my loops are all even. This way, when I wrap the wire around them, it will be the same on both sides. So it's quite vital to make sure, and it's a reminder where to put it every single time. So I'm going to pick up one of my wires, and with my flat nose pliers I'm just going to give it a bend somewhere around the middle. So it's just got a 90 centimeter bend now. And then I'm going to grab my round nose pliers, and I'm just going to put them where I've marked, just above my little bend, and I'm going to bend it backwards, and then I'm going to carry the wire round my pliers, so I've made a little loop. And I take my round nose pliers out, and I grab the little loop with my flat nose pliers, like so, just gently. And then I'm going to take the wire and wrap it around 3 times. So I end up with a loop with a wire wrap around it, and then I'm going to take my flush cutters and I'm going to cut it as close as I can to the end, and I'm just going to slightly straighten my little loop because they can become lopsided when you're wrapping the wire around. And now I'm going to take my first bead, which is my purple amethyst, and this particular bead corresponds to the I understand chakra, and I'm going to thread it onto my wire. Now that I've threaded my bead onto the wire, I'm going to repeat the same but on the other side. So I'm going to give it a bend, a 90-degree bend with my flat nose pliers. Then I'm going to take my round nose pliers and I'm going to grab them at my marked point just slightly above my bend, and I'm going to loop it backwards, and then I'm going to carry the wire round with my hand, and then I'm going to take my round nose pliers out and re-grab my loop with my flat nose pliers, and then I can twist the wire around in exactly the same way, making sure I do 3 twists so that both sides are even. So I'll twist it around 3 times tightly, and then I will cut them, the excess wire, as close as I can with my flash cutters. And this is why you need to use these cutters to make wire wrapped jewelry, because you need to be able to get in quite close. So now I'm going to join my second bead to this wire wrapped bead. I'm just going to slightly straighten my loops so they're both pointing in the same direction. And this is where it gets a bit tricky, but once you've done it once, it becomes quite easy. So initially I do exactly the same as I did before, and I make a 90-degree bend in my wire with my flat nose pliers, and then I grab the wire just above the bend with my round nose pliers, and I make my loop. And when I take my round nose pliers out, before I've closed it and regrouped it with my flat nose pliers, I'm going to slip the other bead through it and then close it. So I will take the bead that I've just made and I put it through so it goes down. So now I've got one bead hanging off the first loop, and I'm going to re-grab that loop with my flat nose pliers, and I'm going to twist it around 3 times. And I'm going to cut off the excess wire, and I'm going to slip my next bead on it, and this bead will be my indigo color, which corresponds with the IC chakra, and it's a lapis bead. So with my bead threaded onto the wire, I'm going to do the same again. Bend, fold back, carry on, and then grab with my flat nose pliers and wrap my wire 3 times. 1, 2, and 3, and I will cut off the excess with my flash cutters. Now don't worry if there's little bits of wire that are not completely tucked in. When I've finished joining all my beads together, I will go over it and make sure that there's no protruding bits of wire. Now I'm ready to put my third bead on, and for my third bead, for my blue, I've got a square turquoise bead, and this bead corresponds to the I talk chakra. And even though it's square, I wrap it with the wire in exactly the same way. It doesn't matter what shape your beads are or how big they are. The thing that's important is to make sure that your loops are the same size and that you always stick to the number of wraps that you're making. I've done 3, so it's vital that I make sure that every time I wrap, I do 3 wraps. And you can just straighten your loops by tweaking them ever so slightly in between. If you put them down, you'll see if they're not going in the right direction, and then you can just bend them up or down or backwards or forwards, just to make sure that in the end all your linked beads will be going the right way. Okay, so next up I'll be putting my beautiful round green aventurine bead on, and green corresponds with I love. And again, in exactly the same way, I slip it over, I bend the wire above it, and then with my round nose pliers in the same place, I bend it back and around. Then I remove my round nose pliers, I grab it, the loop, with my flat nose pliers, and I will make my 3 twists, a little 3-wire coil on top of the bead. Just straighten it a bit before I cut it. It's a bit lopsided, like so. And then with my flash cutters, I just go in as close as I can and snip the excess. So I've finished putting all my beads together in exactly the same way, and I'm just going to quickly tell you the others that I've done, and I've just fast forwarded a bit. So we've got yellow, which is yellow quartz, and this one is for the I do chakra. We've got orange, which is orange carnelian, and this one is for the I feel chakra. And I've got red, which is my red jasper, and this one is for my I am chakra. And now what's left for me to do before I put on the chain and the little clasp is just a bit of what I call housekeeping, to make sure that there are no sharp protruding edges from the wires. So I actually just feel them with you can have a look, or you can just feel it with your fingers, and where you think that maybe you can trim them a bit more, just get your little flash cutters in there and give them a little snip. And then with your flat nose pliers, you can also give them a little squeeze, just a gentle squeeze to make sure they're not protruding. And check all your little connections, because you don't want it to get caught in your clothes, and you definitely don't want it to scratch you because it's unpleasant. So just check as you work your way down. Squeezing gently because you don't want to ruin the shape of your coil. And I'm just going to check that all my loops are also facing the same way, just so it doesn't twist when I wear it. And if they're not, you can just give them a little twist like you did before, and it will just make it hang better, or sit better on your wrist in this case. Okay, so I think this is all looking good. 3 little coils on the top of each bead, and my little loops are more or less the same size. And now I'm just going to finish it off. So my 10 centimeters of fine chain, I'm going to put a little extender on them, which means that I can adjust it when I wear my bracelet. And I'm going to do this by joining 3 of my 5mm jump rings with 2 of my 2mm jump rings. Now I've joined 3 of my 5mm jump rings to 3 of my 2mm jump rings. Just make sure that they're all carefully closed, otherwise they'll fall apart when you wear it. And I'm going to attach this little extender to one end of my chain. I'm going to do it by carefully opening up my 2mm jump ring and putting the chain over it, closing it. So I've got a little extender, adjustable extender down one side, and on the other side of the chain I'm going to join my clasp again with a little 2mm jump ring. You need to open it slightly more to do this one because you have to feed the little clasp through it as well as the chain, so make sure your opening is big enough, and then carefully close it, making sure that it's very tight. And now I'm going to attach this to my beads, and I will do it again with a 2mm jump ring, which I will put through the first loop on my purple bead, then my little extender, the last jump ring on it goes on there, and I close it. So now what I've got left to do is put the little loop that my extender gets fed through, so that I can bend it back on itself and close my bracelet. It's a really easy way to make sure that you can open and close your bracelets without getting somebody to help you. So I know sometimes opening and closing bracelets can be very fiddly. So I'm going to do this by putting a 5mm jump ring on the other end of my linked beads. I'll feed it through the last loop, and then my 1cm ring goes on here as well, and I close it. So my bracelet is now good to go. You can put your little chain or your little fastener through it, and then slip it over your wrist and take it back on itself. You then open your clasp and you close it where you need on your extender, so you don't need anybody else's help. And there we go.